Good morning and welcome. Monday morning. So we'll take a moment to establish a good posture for our invocation. You can rock a little bit side to side so that you become more aware of your pelvis touching the thing you're sitting on, whether it's the mat or some blankets, and that you widen the pelvis and pull the sitting bones a little bit back so that you can sit tall with an arch in your lumbar spine. So just feel that slight tilt forward of the pelvis. It allows your hips to drop down more, which makes the seated pose more comfortable and releases some tension that we all carry in the front of the hips. So what I'm doing right now is a good thing to do always when you start a seated practice, is to use your hand right up with the wrist of your hand way up near the top of your thigh, and just gently or firmly, however much it feels good to do it, press down into the top of your thigh with your hand, and do that a couple of times on each side. So that reminds the thigh bones that they don't have to grip. And then they'll easily release forward and down, and your spine will have its natural arch, and you can lift up through the whole spine, right up through the crown of your head, and take some deep breaths. Feel the movement of your ribs, but the stability of your pelvis. So we're going to work on stability of the pelvis today. I am participating in an anatomy workshop with one of my teachers whose focus is lumbopelvic stability. And it's interesting to focus on stability because many people come to yoga with the aim, the goal, the wish to loosen up their hips. But the good news is that you can be both strong and stable and also flexible. And that's what the yoga practice is so good at helping you achieve. So that's our focus today, stability and mobility in the hips and the lower back, and understanding over time, over our whole life of practice, what that relationship is between the lower back and the hip joints. It's amazing. We are two-legged beings, and we have a particular challenge to balance over the little round heads of our femur bones inside the hip socket. So I could go on and on, but let's just pause now with the anatomy and rock forward and back on your sitting bones for a moment so that you feel what I just spoke of, which is how we're balancing the whole upper body on these round balls, one in each hip. And we have a vast array of muscles and fascia to help us stabilize in that balance. Okay, let's do the invocation, Om Chaitanyam today, honoring consciousness. It starts with Om, and we'll do a separate Om to begin and another Om at the end, as we always do, and then 3 times through the invocation. Take a breath in. Om. Om Chaitanyam Shashvatam Shantam Vyomatitam Niranjanam Naravindu Kalatitam Tasmei Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Chaitanyam Shashvatam Shantam Vyomatitam Niranjanam Naravindu Kalatitam Tasmei Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Chaitanyam Shashvatam Shantam Vyomatitam Niranjanam Naravindu Kalatitam Tasmei Shri Gurave Namaha. Take a couple of deep breaths, feeling the resonance of the chant. Chanting automatically slows our breath down, and that's part of our centering that we do in the beginning of a practice. Coming more into the body in a more subtle awareness, deeper awareness, and steadying the breath. Okay, so you can open your eyes. Besides the hip joints, we have the sacroiliac joints in the back. So if you reach back and touch the back of your pelvis, you'll feel the bony sacrum. You'll feel two little button-like shapes, one on each side. And just next to that, a little bit wider than that, is where your sacroiliac joint is. Many of us have tenderness in one or both sides of that throughout our lives, either intermittently or constantly. It's a very common issue for people. So part of what we do in yoga is to align those joints, the sacroiliac joints, and strengthen the muscles that help support them. So let's do that now in various ways. So put your hands on the knees, press down with your hands, and lift up through your spine as if you're really trying to come off the floor even, just lift up. And you'll feel some muscles engage right around those sacroiliac joints. Take a couple of breaths, continuing that pressure down into your legs with your hands. All right, and then release. And now let's think about the pelvic floor and activate it. So the pelvic floor is several layers of muscles that connect the bottom bones of your pelvis, the sitting bones, pubic bone, tailbone, in this web that has the capacity to draw into the center and then lift. And that action in yoga is called Mula Bandha, the root lock. This area of the body is considered the root of the subtle energy in the body. So this is called the root lock because we're going to firm those muscles around that area and then lift up a little bit. So it's totally invisible. You won't be able to see me doing anything, and I can't, of course, see you doing anything. But now just keeping your spine long and tall, tone the muscles of your pelvic floor and lift. So it's like you're just drawing upward from the center of your pelvic floor deeper into the pelvis. Now, you'll notice that your lower abdominals contracted, and that's what we focused on last week. So that should be familiar, that you can feel contraction and do contraction in the lower abs without the upper abs tightening. So those two things go together, Mula Bandha and a firming of your lower abdominals, both of which support the sacroiliac joint. So that's Mula Bandha. Now you can release it and just kind of move around casually. And we're going to do Uddiyana Bandha now as well. Actually, let's do our seated warm-up first, and then we'll stand up and do Uddiyana Bandha. So circle your shoulders. And then with your shoulders back and your spine long and tall, move your head left and right. And then come back to center and move your head up and down. And go slowly enough that you can feel the end point of the stretch, but fast enough that it feels like a movement rather than, kind of a static stretch. So we're going to the end point of our range and approaching that end point gently, but with the goal of getting to the end point. All right, come up, take your hand to the side, right hand off to the side, left head goes to the left. And reach with your head, touch with your hand, and notice the stretch all the way down. And then other side. And let's go back to the first side and look down. And then look up. And back to center. Second side. Take your head to the shoulder, but then look down. And then look up. And back to center, circle your shoulders again. Okay, let's do the full curve and arch of the spine. You can reach your hands behind, touch the floor, lift your chest, inhale. And then exhale, come forward. Feel your sacrum moving on each of these parts of this exercise. Bring your awareness down into your lumbar spine and sacrum, especially today, and your hip joints. Okay, and then cross the legs the other way, and let's do the pushing down into the top of the femurs once more. So take your hands, you can do both at once or lean to one side to do one at a time, so that you're pushing down your thigh bones and lifting up your spine. And then take your hands away, inhale, and exhale, turn to the right without changing your pelvis. The pelvis remains steady, and your left thigh pulls back into the hip socket to keep that steadiness, so that there should be no strain in your sacrum here, because the twist happens from the navel up. Okay, back to center, and you can be doing Mula Bandha this whole time. Inhale, engage Mula Bandha, engage your right thigh as you twist to the left and exhale. Hold it while you feel everything that's happening, the stability of your legs and pelvis, the movement of your spine from the navel up. And then go each side with a little more speed and fluidity, but still stabilizing your pelvis. Okay, and now let's come up to standing and do Uddiyana Bandha. So this is going to be focusing on the diaphragm area. I think you've all done it before. So come up to standing and stand with your legs somewhat wide for stability. And lean down onto your thighs with your hands. Keep your spine long and your shoulders broad if you can. During this action, your spine will round a little bit, but just not too much. Kind of minimize the rounding. It's going to be happening somewhat. But what you will feel is toning in the pelvic floor, the abdomen, and then a lift of your diaphragm as it pulls up into the rib cage. Inhale a full breath. Exhale all the way out. Complete the exhalation, and then close your mouth, close your airway. Suck in with your muscles, but not with the air, as if you're taking a deep breath. So your ribs will expand, but you haven't let in any air. Hold that, feeling your diaphragm, and then release it and stand up. So it's the same action as a big inhalation. So do that now, right now, and do take in some air just so you feel it. It's that same sucking action that we make when we do a big inhale. But we don't let any air in, so the diaphragm is pulled up into the rib cage, causing a momentary lock in that area of the body. So inhale, exhale, all the way out, and then tone your pelvic floor, close the airway, pull up with your diaphragm into the ribs, your belly pulls up into the rib cage, you hold it, feeling whatever is going on all around your ribs, you'll feel sensations. And then let that action go, and inhale, stand up. The amount of time you hold it, of course, is up to you. I'm trying to gauge what would be kind of a medium amount today. You can hold it longer if you want, or shorter. Let's do it one more time. Come down into the shape, inhale. Big exhalation, all the way out, empty the air out. Close the airway, tone and lift your pelvic floor, lift the diaphragm, the belly up into the rib cage. Feel the stretchy feeling around the whole rib cage. Maybe your back ribs feel different. And then release the action and inhale, come up to standing. All right, so we'll go down onto the floor again now, and we'll do the balls on the abdomen and the psoas area, which will, and we'll do it up into the diaphragm a little bit too. So we'll go front of the hips into the belly and then a little up into the diaphragm. So you can start with the easy grip or anything similar size, one on each side of the front of your pelvis, lying on your stomach with your elbows supporting you. And just pause and feel that pressure into the front of the hips. And when you're ready, start to move side to side, nice and slow. Often we push the pelvis forward when we're standing. It's just a strategy that is so common for us two-legged beings. And that causes this area to get very tight because it has to kind of brace to balance us. Sometimes we do it more with one side than the other, and I do that with my left more than my right. And you may feel a difference now in how much the pressure of the ball is causing sensation for you. Okay, let's move the balls up a little bit into the lower abdomen. And you can still be up on your elbows, or if you want, you can lie flat. It tends to be a little more intense if you're all the way down to the floor. So you're just exploring what the balls reveal as you roll your hips gently and slowly side to side. So you're getting into the psoas muscle now, which is a major stabilizer of this part of the body. Okay, now take the balls a little higher, and if you prefer, you can do one at a time. For myself, I'm going to do 2 balls at this level, and then I'm going to take it back to 1 ball when I go higher up. But you can choose. You're moving slowly side to side. And you can improvise if you find that it might be interesting to roll a little bit to one side so that you're actually putting more pressure on one ball than the other. That's totally fine. Okay, let's do the top spot now. And if you want, you can take 1 ball out and just go across with the single ball. I like that because it allows me to get right into the middle where I have some tension. Okay, let's come on over now and work on the neck with one of the balls. So we'll do the neck for a few minutes and then we'll do the pelvis, lower back into the pelvis. So lie down with the ball under the top of your neck and pause just to feel it. And then begin to go to one side. As the ball moves across, it reveals the muscles that are there. And if you find a tight spot, you can double back over it a few times. You can also go up and down. And then go over to the other side. All right, back to center, and then we'll do just one more spot on the neck. So you can decide whether to go just down into the middle of your neck or maybe go a little lower to the lower part of the neck, which for me is always tighter than the middle. So if you're going to the middle, you'll be looking straight up. If you're going to the lowest part, you'll be draping your head backwards so your chin is higher than your forehead. So just choose a spot that feels right for today and move slowly, slowly across it. Either side to side or making a nodding motion, alternating maybe between those two. Make sure you go to the other side at some point now. And then back to center and take the ball out and just roll your head side to side. I know that was a fairly short time, so you can just make a mental note for yourself if you want to do it more later in the day. But the wonderful thing about the ball work is, if you do it often, your body can respond pretty quickly when you go down onto the balls to do some work. So keep that in mind, the more you practice, the more the body knows the conversation with the ball. So now we'll go on the lower back and the pelvis with the little hard balls, but baseballs or anything similar. So start out at about your waistline, just at the lowest ribs, top of the lumbar. And let your weight settle. And then move slowly side to side. And then move down an inch or two. So you're probably right on the waistline now, not feeling the ribs anymore, and just go across these large, strong lower back muscles. So there are several large, strong muscles that converge here in the lumbar spine, and they're protected and connected by a very strong area of fascia. And it's fascinating to see. I'm participating in a dissection, so I was seeing it under the skin. And there are many nerves that are coming out from your spine at that point to go down the legs, spreading into, dividing into smaller nerves from the large roots that come out of the spine. And sometimes those nerve roots get compressed by this strong fascia. So that's what I feel is one of the main benefits of doing ball work on this part of the body, is that you keep the fascia, the connective tissue, more pliable, more loose, so that it doesn't squeeze the nerves or, constrict the nerves at all. So now go down just above your pelvis so that you can feel the top edge of the sacrum there, or the ilium. I guess it's really the ilium, because if you're using two balls, you've got them wide enough apart so that they're on the ilium. And then the sacrum's in the middle, but I don't usually use the ball right on the sacrum. I prefer to use the balls one on each side of it, because you're getting to more muscular real estate that way. So let's do that. Take the balls down onto your buttocks, one on each side, about 2 to 3 inches lower than where they were just now. And then you can work with your feet remaining on the floor and just move your pelvis slowly. Or you can try moving your legs towards your chest so the feet aren't on the floor, and then you move your legs in the air
Any movement you do changes the angle of pressure and gives you more massage in the buttocks and more information about where the tight spots are. So our goal in yoga or in any well-structured exercise is to develop strength evenly so that we don't strengthen some parts of a joint and not other parts. And that's what we try to do in yoga, is be aware of all sides of the joint that we're thinking about. So now we've been working on the back of the hip joints, and we just worked on the front earlier. Now, if you want to get off to the side, which is really good, you just roll over to one side and do some work over there. Slow movement. And we'll be finishing up pretty soon, so make sure you go to both sides if you're doing this one-sided roll. Okay, now take the balls out. And let's do our warm-ups. Bring your legs up towards your chest, bending your knees, and rock a little side to side. And then bring your legs up in the air, circle your feet. Both directions. And then give them a good shake. And bend and stretch your legs, feeling the knees and the ankles go through their range of motion in each direction, bending and straightening. And then let's do a few pop-ups with your legs in the air using your lower stomach muscles. And of course, the pelvic floor will be working with you as well. Lift your hips off the floor, keeping your shoulders and neck and head as relaxed as you can, stretching your arms to the sides. Okay, then bring the block between your knees. Arms are steady on the floor, reaching out to the side with your hands, and go side to side with your legs. This is working the oblique muscles. That means that they go diagonally across your midsection. And also you're using the deepest one, which is like a belt around the middle. Okay, back to center, take the block out. Separate your feet, arms are stretched up near your head, and bring the right knee across toward the left foot for a diagonal, long, side body stretch on the right side. Really reach, really make it an active stretch, not just flopping into the position, reaching your leg, reaching your arm, and taking some deep breaths. And then other side, left knee comes across, you keep the right knee pointing upward to stabilize the pelvis and the sacrum. Reach with the arm and the leg, and feel your breath because the ribs are getting a nice stretch too. And then first side again, if you want, you can put your heel on top of the knee and you can pull with one hand against the other. And then second side. So this is stretching the outer hip and thigh, which often get very tight and pull on the joints of the hips and sacrum. Okay, back to center. And now, a more of a strengthening pose, the bridge. So tuck your shoulders under, place your feet hip width apart in parallel, and lift up. Special awareness now of your pelvic floor and your lower abs, and the back support muscles of your pelvis as well. So you can clasp your hands if you want with your arms elongated. Visualize now the strength that you're using from the waist down through the hips and thighs. That's the main focus of this pose, lifting the hips from back to front. You might feel some stretch in the front of the hips and thighs. And then come down onto the block. And just pause with a nice breath. And then bring your right leg up, stretch it straight, and bring it all the way down to the floor. With the hips up on a block, you get a gentle stretch at the front of your thigh and into the psoas muscle where you worked with the ball. And then you can pull up through the pelvic floor and the abdomen. And remember that when we're pulling up those muscles, we don't have to hold our breath. We can continue to breathe and use that muscular support from a very deep level inside the pelvis. And then bring your left knee to your chest. You can hold on to it if you want with your hand to pull it further, and you can also stretch it straight up if you want. Notice if you do stretch it straight up, if that changes the feeling in your other leg. Okay, and then both legs bent. Take a breath. Left leg up. Straighten it up, and then bring it all the way down. When it gets to the floor, you reach through the heel, press the thigh down. Lift your abdomen and pelvic floor. But keep breathing. Don't hold your breath. And then right knee comes into your chest. And you can stretch it up and down if you want. Okay, and then both feet are flat and you take the block out. And then just do a little gentle wiggling around on the floor because that one, had a lot of effect on the pelvis and the lumbar spine. So you want to just move it around and see how it feels. All right, so now we'll do the leg stretches with the belt. I'm going to suggest that if you have a towel or a small blanket within reach, that you put it under your lumbar spine. So I'm going to take this regular bath towel that I folded into a kind of a long shape and just put it under my lumbar spine to give a little tilt, very gentle tilt, so that the lower part of my pelvis is more flat to the floor, the upper part of the pelvis is slightly lifted onto the towel. And then you put the belt around your right foot and reach up with your hands so your arms are almost straight, holding the belt. And if you can, you straighten the left leg, pressing the thigh down and reaching through both heels. So both knees are straight, actively straight. So you're really working to push the thighs towards the back of the thigh. So with the right leg, it's forward. With the left leg, it's down. And then see how much you want to pull on the belt. And if you did put a towel under your back, you'll feel the pressure on the towel increase as you pull the leg towards your head. That means that your body's trying to find slack in your lower back because the stretch is challenging on the hamstrings. Okay, and then lift the left leg off the floor. Keep your abdomen strong, but your breath steady. Put the left leg down. Bring the right leg out to the right, turning your toes toward the floor slightly. Roll your head side to side. Back to center with your head. Lift your left leg up. And put it down and come across the midline. Now it's really important here as the leg crosses the midline that you activate the muscles at the top outer part of the hips to broaden. So you're pushing your right hip to the right and left hip to the left. And then lift your left leg up. And put it down. Remove the belt, bend your knee further across, but also move your hips to your right so that when you roll onto your left hip as the lower body twists, your plumb line is still present from the foot to the pelvis to your head. And then you're reaching out with your right hand, broadening through the pelvis, with tone in your pelvic floor and your lower abs. And back to center. I like having this towel here. I hope some of you were able to do that. Okay, take the left leg up, extend the arms, straighten out your right leg, and just prepare for the pose by straightening both legs and noticing the tilt of your pelvis. The benefit of having the right leg flat on the floor is that you can press it down and it helps you tilt the pelvis a little bit into anterior tilt, which is what the lower back needs for its own stability. And then when you pull on the belt, of course, you get the hamstring stretch. Lift the right leg off the floor. And put it down and take the left leg to the left, broadening through your pelvis, keeping the right hip on the floor. You can roll your head side to side. Lift the right leg off the floor. Put it down and come back across. Widen through your pelvis. Press the right thigh into the floor and widen the left thigh hip out to the left. And if you want, you can roll your head side to side. And then lift the right leg up. And put it down and remove the belt. Move your hips to the left. Actually pick them up and move them to the left on the mat, so that when you roll onto your right hip into the twist, you're stretching your left leg across and holding it lightly with your right hand. When you finish doing that, your axis is one straight line from your pelvis down into your foot and from your pelvis up to your head. And then just feel your breath. Feel where the twist is the most evident for you. Okay, and back to center. And just take a couple of breaths resting before we go to the next part. Okay, come on over onto your forearms for the plank. Place your elbows under your shoulders, clasp your hands, tuck your toes, and start out by lengthening the front body. Pelvis, of course, stays on the mat right now, so that you can pull your ribs and upper body away from the pelvis to lengthen the front of the spine. And then look down at your hands and lift up into the plank, toning, firming your abdomen muscles, but not rounding your lower back. You try to keep your back in neutral, which means there's a little arch in the lumbar spine, but you can use your pelvic floor, Mula Bandha, right here. And then come down, stretch your fingers forward so your forearms are parallel to each other. We'll do our first Cobra from here. Stretch back through the legs and lengthen your tailbone, and then press into the floor to lift your chest. Cobra with the hands forward and the arms straight gives you the opportunity to really lengthen the front of the spine, pulling the ribs forward away from the hips. And then come all the way down. And again, place your hands, this time further back if you wish. And rise up, second Cobra. If you move your hands back, you don't necessarily straighten your arms. In fact, you probably don't. So it's a little different work on the shoulders and arms.
allows you to come up a little higher. Stretch back through your toes, firm the pelvic floor. And back down. And 2 or 3 now dynamically with the breath. Inhale, come up. Exhale, go down. Inhale, come up, focusing on the spine here and the breath. Exhale, come down. And one more time. Inhale, come up. And then come back to your forearms and push yourself back into a child's pose with wide knees and a block for your head. And if it feels good, you can rock a little side to side with your upper body. You can lift your head off the block and just sway a little bit side to side. I think that feels good on the hips. See if you like it. Okay, let's come on up and do a down dog. And then we'll be doing lunges, so you can get the blocks ready for that. Place your hands, slight turn out of the fingers so that your index fingers are parallel. Pinky finger is widening out towards the edge of the mat. Upper arms are rotated out so the biceps face forward. And then do a little curved arch of your spine so you're feeling that lumbar and pelvic connection and coordination. And the beautiful movement of the torso over those leg bones, the femur heads. Okay, and then tuck your toes under, keeping some arch in your lumbar spine. Lift up into a bent leg downward dog. So you're making sure that the knees are the same width as the ankles and the feet. You don't want them to drop in towards the midline. And that movement and action to widen them is very beneficial for your pelvic joints. And then straighten one leg at a time. And both legs straight. Now pull back and up with your pelvis, but still press into your fingertips. Move your head around. And then come forward to full arm plank. Again, aiming for neutral Tadasana shape in your spine, so there is some arch in your lumbar spine. And then back to down dog. And forward to plank. And back to down dog. And forward to plank. And then bring your knees to the floor. And let's do a little bit of, come up off your hands and just give them a shake while I'm talking. We're going to do a little side leg lift, which is good to strengthen the muscles on the sides of the pelvis for stability. So once again, on all fours, lift one leg out to the side with the knee bent. Do that several times. Hopefully you don't move much in all the other parts of your body. Just focusing on that lift of the leg. And then change sides. Okay, back to center. And once again, come up to shake out your hands. And then bring the blocks in. And step your right foot forward between the two blocks. Adjust your back knee if you need to make it long enough from front to back and wide enough to be stable for the lunges. Okay, tuck your toes under and up you go into the basic lunge. Stretch back through your back leg forward through your spine and make sure your pelvis is square across. This tends to be pulled more by the leg. So make sure that you're not overdoing the stretch of the back leg such that your pelvis is facing the left side of your mat. Okay, let's do a twist here. So take a left hand on the block or the floor, release the right hand to your hip and turn. Keeping the legs and pelvis completely steady. You can raise your arm if you want. Okay, and back to center. Let's change sides. Right leg forward, left leg back, basic lunge. Widen through the pelvis. So that isometric action that I say so often, widen through the pelvis, is really a key thing for stability and mobility in the hips and the sacrum. Extend your spine forward, back leg back. Lift your abs. And okay, and then back to the blocks again. Take the right leg forward, back, left leg back, and now put the back leg down on the floor and walk the blocks back next to your hips. So you have a choice how far back the left knee is right now on the mat. So I encourage you to, move it back a little bit so it's not vertical anymore. The front knee can come forward more over the toes instead of staying over the ankle. Press down into the blocks and lift your chest. So this is a really nice stretch on the front of the hip. Of course, it's very important to keep the hips facing straight ahead. Okay, let's go into Grasshopper from here. So move both blocks to the left side of your front foot, and move your hips back just a little bit in the air, and then lean onto the blocks, letting your right knee drop off to the right a little bit. So clearly, this is a stretch for the inner thigh, going right up into the hip joint. You can rock a little bit forward and back if you want. Okay, let's do both those things on the other side. Step your left foot forward, right foot back, and bring the back knee down. Check that it's wide enough and long enough for you in terms of the amount of stretch that you want. And then bring the blocks back next to your hips so you can just reach down with your hands to rest on the blocks and give you some support. And then tone your pelvic floor and begin to lift up into an arch shape, moving the blocks as needed, maybe back a little bit as your hands can come back. And you can move the hips forward a tiny bit also if you want more stretch. And come back. So one of the things I like about that pose is that it requires you to be both working strongly and stretching. And that's really good. So now Grasshopper. So bring the blocks to the right-hand side of your left foot. Move your hips back a little bit and come forward onto your forearms on the block for this groin stretch. Move forward and back a little bit with your hips. Okay, let's do one more down dog. Feeling your hip joints, of course. And then walk forward with your feet widening so they're on the edges of the mat. Bend your knees and rest your forearms on your thighs so your spine can extend. And then push down with your legs as you inhale and come up. All right, so hopefully your pelvis and hip joints feel warmed up. So now let's focus on the shoulders a little bit. Circle your shoulders again. And clasp your hands behind, getting that stretch at the front of the shoulder joint. And now let's do Gomukasana Arms. So if you use a belt for that, you get the belt ready now. Bring the right arm up. Turn it so the biceps faces backwards. Your fingers come to the base of your neck or down a little bit further into your spine. Other arm comes out to the side. and then you reach up to catch the belt with the bottom arm or hook your fingers. And then come to the wall, resting your elbow on the wall, and pull back a little bit with your hips so it creates a good stretch at the back of your arm. So you can face directly toward the wall or a little bit obliquely to get the right pressure on the upper arm. Okay, release, circle your shoulders again. Second side, bring the arm up, turn it so the biceps faces backwards, touch the back of your neck and bring the other arm to the side. Breathe and expand your chest just before we get the second arm into it. And then come in with the second arm, either hooking your fingers or holding the belt with both hands. Keep breathing. Use the wall if you wish, which is putting your upper elbow on the wall and leaning into it with your upper body, but pulling your hips back a little bit, similar to the way we pull the hips back in downward dog. And then release. Circle again. Okay, so let's have time for inversion now. Inversion of your choice. You could simply do another down dog if you want. You could do dog pose on the wall. You could do handstand or forearm balance or headstand. So take your choice. When you're making your foundation, be very careful. The foundation is firm with the hands or the forearms. And you're pressing down into the foundation to lift the whole rest of the body up. So you can think of from your heart and your lungs rising up. But the arms and the neck and the head, especially if you're in headstand, are pressing down to create a stable foundation. So go ahead and do whichever of the inversions you want. And then come on out of your inversion and take the rest pose of your choice. My recommendation is child's pose with your head on the block. Okay, come on back up. And we're going to do the thigh stretch using the wall to get ready to do it in the half moon pose. So put your hand on the wall and you can face sideways to the wall or you can face a little bit towards it if you want. Grasp your foot with one hand. I'm using my right hand on my right foot. Lift your chest and then begin to come out with forward with your torso so that your leg goes behind you. And that's part of the pose. That's what we do in Natarajasana. But then we're going to add to it this time by turning so that your knee now points to the side and your upper body has to come off to the other side. So this is the pose, the half bow pose that we do as part of the half moon. So you try to get your knee to be high enough that your whole leg is parallel to the floor. Let's do the other side. So you're near the wall to be able to hold on to it. Catch your foot with your hand, lift your chest, and begin to bring the leg behind you, leaning forward with your upper body. So now you can see that your knee is pointing down. So now I want you to turn the leg out so the knee points to the side and your upper body has to go to the other side and the wall is helping you balance. So in this pose, this is like a half bow pose. You're holding on to one foot with one hand and trying to take the leg behind you, but also up. Okay, so that's the general shape we try for in this next pose. It's part of the series. But of course, if you don't make it all the way to that shape, you can just hold onto your foot, and that's a good start. So, triangle pose to your right. Inhale, raise your arms, palms facing straight ahead. Exhale, go out. Super strong. Your hand comes down onto your leg. Forgot the block here. Your other arm is straight up. And you're expanding through your spine. Expanding from your tailbone and pelvis going in one direction, top of the head going the other direction. And then bring your hand to your hip, the top hand to your hip. In with your left foot and bring your hand out way in front of your right foot on the block if you wish, and lift up into half moon pose. So you're in your right leg and right hand, lifting the thigh, looking down at the floor, but turning your torso forward. And then see if you can grasp hold of your right foot behind you, lift it up and take it behind you. So the knee is parallel to the pelvis, and it's going back. Okay, and then release, and come onto 2 feet, ready for the second side. Okay, so turn the left leg out. Inhale, raise your arms. Exhale, reach out through the left hand, bringing your body over your left leg, elongating your spine. So I'm sure you feel a stretch on your leg you're leaning towards the left. But see if you also maybe feel a stretch on the right side of the body near the hips. Take your left arm up, right arm up. Breathe. Pelvic floor is always useful here, especially when we go into the next 2 poses, which are balancing poses. Okay, so here we go into Ardha Chandrasana. Step in with your right leg. Come onto your left hand and left foot. Lift the knees high as you can and take the leg behind you. This is the sugarcane pose. All right, and then release down. And come all the way up. Pause and breathe. Feeling the energy in your body. Okay, now let's go up to the wall to do the twisted version of that pose with some support. So you're going to have your side to the wall. Stand. I'm going to say the same side I'm using, just so I don't make a mistake left and right. Stand on your right foot, but your left hip is against the wall. And then bring your left hand down onto the block, which is way out in front of your foot, and lift the back leg up behind you. So your whole left side is leaning against the wall, and you can turn away from that support to be in the twist. So if this is too much to try, if you're not familiar with it, you can just look at the screen so you get to know the shape. Okay, let's come down and do the other side. So now your right side is going to be against the wall. You put the block out in front. You're stepping, you've got the block is near the wall. You're standing on your left leg, and you lift the right leg up behind you and catch the foot. Much of your right side can be against the wall. My whole right leg is against the wall right now. And then turn away from the wall. And breathe. Okay, release down. And let's do Prasarita Vadakonasana to finish up that standing sequence. So you can have a couple of blocks. Take a wide stance. The blocks are in front of you. Inhaling, lift up through your spine, bending from the hips, come down to put your hands on the blocks, and purposely, really strongly widen your thighs. Extend your spine forward, and then if you choose to, and if it's safe for you to do so, you can curve your spine down and rest your head on one or two blocks. Breathe and continue to lift through the leg muscles, but release your spine. All right, then straighten your spine up, walk your feet in a little bit, and bend your knees. Press down through the legs to inhale and come up. Okay, we're going to go down to the floor now and do first Vadakonasana and fire log, and then we'll be doing Virasana. So you want to have a blanket or two under your hips. And then if you still have that towel that we used earlier, or you have something else that you can substitute, you put a little lift underneath your ankles and heels. And this means that the alignment of your lower leg from the knee down to your foot is going to be supported. Press the feet together, broaden your hips and knees, and begin to slowly come forward to whatever degree you feel is safe for you to come forward without too much rounding of your spine. A little bit is okay. If it works for your arms, you can push down into your thighs to help them widen. Okay, come back up, and now we're going to do fire log. So you want to put some kind of lift. I'm going to use the towel again for the bottom leg. I have my my right leg coming in. Under my foot, and then I bring in another blanket that goes across that leg so that I can put the other leg on top, stacking the two lower legs like fire logs. Now, you can use as much as you need to support that second knee. If it's way up in the air, then you might want to try sitting your pelvis up a little higher. So you've got one shin stacked on top of the other, and that's why we call it fire log. And then you put your hands on the outsides of the knees, press in with your hands and out with your legs. And lean forward to whatever degree feels right for you. Okay, now we're going to take that into Ardha Matsyendrasana. So you remove the top leg, take the top leg out to the side a little bit, and then with the bottom leg, point the knee straight ahead. And you can change, you can orient it with your hands. And for me, I'm going to take the towel out from under it, and then put the other foot across. So you've got one foot on the outside of the other knee. You have one knee in the air, and you reach with your hands, you press down into the knee, and then turn towards that direction. So I'm turning to my right, which will probably look like the left to your screen. Pull your abdomen into the twist, but keep your pelvic bones steady with your pelvic floor and your abdomen. So the abdomen's doing double duty here. It's helping you stabilize the pelvis, but also helping you twist. Okay, let's do both those poses on the other side. First of all, fire log. if you found that your knees were way up in the air on that previous one, you can add another lift under your hips right now. So you put one leg into this position where the shin bone is going across your mat, and you have the towel underneath the shin, and then you bring another blanket on top of that so that you can support the second leg as it comes in. And of course, you can add, if your knee needs a little more support, that second knee, you can add a block, which I'm putting in so you can see it. Okay, and then lift your spine, bring your hands to the knees, push in with your hands and out with the knees, and see if you want to come forward a bit. Big stretch on the outer edge of the thigh and hip. Okay, and then come up, and we're going to remove some of the towels now and blankets, and move the bottom leg so that the knee points straight ahead. The other leg crosses over so the foot is, this is Ardha Matsyendrasana. Press down with your hands into the upper knee, and then using your arm to keep your chest rotating, your hand is pulling on the knee, and then you turn to that side and breathe. So again, your abdomen is doing double duty to stabilize you from the waist down, but also to twist you from the waist up. Okay, let's do a little Upavishta to undo that. Call that one of the pretzel poses. So we stretch out again. So bring your feet out to the side, legs out to the side, Upavishta Konasana with your knees straight. And of course, have blanket under your hips if that helps you. Inhale, lift your spine, and exhale, come forward, even just the smallest amount. Hands can be in front of you or on your legs. So activate your inner thighs and those outer thigh muscles that we used way back in the beginning when we lifted the leg to one side. This is a place where they can really help you to be stable and mobile in the pelvis. Okay. I'm sitting with my knees straight ahead and my feet folded to the outsides of the block that I'm sitting on. This is called Virasana. It's a big thigh stretch. If your knees are as mine are, or stiff as mine are, you can use a towel or a piece of sticky mat in between your lower leg and your upper leg, and it really helps.